Yeah. Okay, so the only other road that's getting any substantive is Whitestone Lake Road. And again, it seems to me we did some basic work to try to get rid of some drainage problems and things on it. But this 100,000 that is in the projects for consideration, that's again to try to get it up to a standard where it'll last for 10 years, or?
Yes, through your worship, it's the two main impacted areas are the low flat, where we toward the corner I am in 2018, and we removed the hard surface at that time. We maintained it as a rooftop section since then. That needs considerable granular placed on top of that to prepare properly for the high flow, and I don't recommend doing from bottom of hill to bottom of hill. So the length of this stripping will be beyond that area that's currently stripped. So we're looking at that and the next section up toward the resort, toward Meadowcroft, the North Meadowcroft comes in. That's a fairly extensive area as well. So there will be pulverized and high flow.
So none of this is working on the hills then?
Yes.
Oh.
This includes resurfacing those hills.
Resurfacing, okay, all right, because that was my understanding. It said surface treatment, so I thought, okay, sorry.
But the surface treatment does include improving the base to receive that.
Yeah.
surface treatment.
Yeah.
We remove the problematic clay pockets and corridor that were coming up through the former high flow. That whole stretch into that proper lift and drain around there and prepare it for the high.
Councillor Lamb?
The salt shed, $40,000 to rehabilitate. What's involved in that, and is that an imminent thing?
Through your worship, yes, it is. We were required by the Ministry of Labor last year to undertake a review of the facility in compliance with their report on timber dome structure failures. And because our unit had never been evaluated or assessed for repairs, we brought in a consultant from down south who is probably the best known in the province for evaluating this kind of work. And he's given us a report including costing estimates and a detail of all the work that's needed to bring that structure back into proper condition.
Okay, good, thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Yes?
This only includes 2020, and then there's nothing projected beyond on the budget, capital budget here. Like Farley's Road, there's nothing in for gravel. Balsam Road, nothing in for gravel. But I assume that it's in, say, 2021, 22 or something?
Through your worship, previously in the capital plan, there's two items that will contribute to evaluating and constructing a proper 5-year program and 5-year asset management plan. And they're up under the general government sections where the preparation of the asset management plan and the evaluation on the roads needs studies. So those two things are what's going to give you your benchmarking platform to lay out a proper asset management plan and confidence in for capital replacement program.
So on the second page there, it's slurry seal. I know we did a big section of the Money Trail, a couple $100,000, I believe, to upgrade that road so it would last a long time. Is it not probable that we should be doing slurry seal on some other surface treated roads?
Through your worship, yes, I think that there should be slurry seal done. I like slurry seal for extending the life on your roads such as what slurry seal is really just a very, very high quality driveway seal. And things like we just discussed, the section of Canning Road, from the corner there up to the end, it would benefit from the slurry seal. It's got some years on it, but it's not badly spider webbed, it's not starting to break up and come apart. And a slurry seal on that section would extend the life of that surface. So yes, you're right, there are other hard surface sections that we have to benefit from the slurry seal. But again, I think that prioritizing those and setting those will be part of the road need study and the development of your asset management study.
Thank you.
So thank you for all that. So the tandem commo unit has already been ordered. Am I reading this right, or?
Yes, Your Worship, Council awarded that tender last year, and it's being built. It's just about finished now. We're waiting for a few more parts from Viking Chives to finish the build. But the truck and the platform is being delivered. Sincor has built the back and body, installed the motor control equipment on it. So it's just a couple more pieces that are left to be finished, and then we'll be receiving the truck.
So that one's not a discretionary, it's not a project for consideration, we got to pay it.
You awarded the tender, so yes,
Yeah.
we did make that decision. I think it was August, somewhere around there.
Okay. All right, anything more, Beth?
Yeah, just one question. I don't remember if I remember this correctly, but the road needs study. Didn't we talk about that last year? Have you already booked it for this year? Because you didn't say last year, had we done in the spring? I think that was the best time to do a road study.
There was complications getting that out of the gate properly last year, so that's why it's back on the table.
Okay, anything else on roads? Okay, thank you. Let's move to landfill. Questions about those particular items?
You may want to tell everybody what's happening here.
Okay, in case somebody is wondering about the last item says school cans bottle program. The bottle sheds for York Street, for the York Street landfill site, are in the process of being built. New ones, new wooden structures are being built, and should be ready this spring. I don't know when exactly. To follow up with the guys that are doing it, but it's we did issue a PO for them just at the end of the year there. So that money that was in there that's shown as carrying over will be spent.
Mr. Mayor, I'm wondering if there is sufficient funds in under the landfill, since we last evening put together a task force to look at all the changes and necessary revamping of landfills, both York Street and Olds. There will be signage, there will be promotional stuff. I see here we have education promotion program, $3,500. I'm wondering if that's sufficient to, we won't know until we get into our task force, a meeting or two out, and see where we're really at. But I feel there probably will be some cost factors here.
Through Your Worship, there is additional funding being requested in the operating budget for both staffing and other consumable items for the landfill sites. I think that's what the thinking, my thinking was that that's what will feed bringing forward an incremental implementation of the recommendations that come from now the task force and the current council for decision.
So you feel there's sufficient dollars in the overall budget? Like if we need bins, extra bins, or we do some different process changes that may cost some dollars, I hate to see us 3 months, 4 months from now, there's no money in the budget. I don't know what those monies really are right now.
Through your worship, the other funding is in operating, so it doesn't take into account a bank of new bins or other things like that. This budget does provide for the retaining wall to change that system over at Alls. It includes another bin, so we have the 3 bins to cycle through the sites, one staying at the transporter and one being on each site at any given time. So those larger ticket items, I think, are in there, and maybe there's a balance that's going to happen between implementation of thoughts and recommendations and funding that's available to move forward at a given speed. But the gather that I got from council was there was a desire to implement things on a bit more pragmatic approach, and so that was the thinking in putting these budgets together, both operating and capital.
So one more question. So you don't anticipate the need for heavy backhoe time, costs to move materials around and do setup, like opening up sections of the dump, filling, covering, all that kind of thing? You don't see any great expense over what we're doing right now in this past year for the current year?
There is some in the operating budget.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. We could, I guess we could increase the number, but the problem is we have no basis on which to increase it because we don't really know what we would be. And I guess if we run into mid-year, if we run into a situation where we need to buy something that's substantial or do some substantial work in order to move on to the next thing, then we'll have to sit and discuss it at that time.
And through your worship, we are also somewhat bound by provincial decisions. You may recall last August, they made a very definitive statement that producer responsibility for diversion and recycling was going to be in place moving forward. There were, I think, a resolution from council in the early part of the year, and we intended to get that process underway in short order. Now they don't anticipate anything happening before 21-23. They put the whole drive for council resolutions on hold, on a back burner. So would we have had the money that we currently spend on recycling if all of that had to be covered by producer responsibility? And is that going to give you a kick point in the transition of the use and application of systems and services at the landfill when that does happen? I thought not too long ago that was going to be the case. I can tell you after a meeting I was at last week, I'm very pessimistic you're going to see anything of substance before 23-24. The drive fell off the table.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Can we move on to facilities? The dock and concrete ramp improvements, which I am assuming are all right here, what exactly is still to be done there?
Your worship, we purchased half of the precast concrete slabs to replace the entire concrete ramp from low water to the top of the pier. And so we purchased half of those last year with the funding that was provided in the budget. They're sitting at the yard, and we need the same amount of money to buy the other half of those slabs this year, and some additional funding to excavate and place a base of pure stone underneath those that are ready for placement. The application to M&R for the permit is for the low water mark, so it's a matter of being staged and having everything ready. these ramps, of course, as we found out last year, actually have to be ordered a pretty considerable number of months in advance because they don't stock them, they make them by projects as their contract. So it would also include the supplier's lift truck and being available for the placement of those at the time that it's done. I would suggest that your staff would do the excavation themselves. The placement of the granulars would be managed by your staff, and then the placement of the ram pieces itself would be done with your staff and under the guidance and supervision of the provider.
Okay, thank you. Other, Councillor Lamb?
So it's gravel and then slabs that are put on top of the gravel, basically, is that
That's
my?
What's there has to be excavated, removed.
Oh, you take all that out and then?
That all comes out,
Okay.
and the base of clear stone is placed underneath, and then the slabs are placed on top of that from the bottom coming.
Yeah, the other thing I'm concerned about, and I've brought up several times, and believe me, I've heard from just about every roads association on Whitestone, is the dock. I see you've got dock improvements for 12.5. I don't know whether that's the right number. But, you know, the result of what we have now is you know, we spent $75,000 or $80,000 on a dock down there that, as you know, can basically house one boat. And if one boat's there, the whole lake is backed up waiting out here. And if someone's actually putting a boat in or out of that area at the same time, it's a bit of a mess, okay? And what I'd always sort of suggested, and frankly, I've had, you know, calls from 4 or 5 roads associations, and they're saying, do you want us to send a letter? And, you know, and I said, no, just hold on, we'll have this discussion, but I can get you 10 letters pretty quick about having another separate dock. And I kept calling it, you know, like the McKellar dock down there, you know, with some arms on it, so that people on the lake or people bringing the boats into the lake can actually dock there, use the place. You know, we've got the library going, we've got the park going down here, the accessibility, you know, the liquor store, the community center, everything's here, but people can't get to it. And so what is it that you're planning to do with 12,500? Because I heard from McKellar it was about 20,000, and I suspected that the dock should go down here somewhere, so that you know, it can be accessed and away from the beach area, but have a separate kind of area. And I think it'd be magnificent for you know, the village here, sort of, and everyone on the lake. So is that what you're planning, or you're planning something else?
Through your worship, McKellar purchased 2 units they put in at their location. This 12,006 is premised on one unit. It's the same as those 2, just 1 unit. Where you decide to place it will certainly be a decision for some considerable thought. But myself, I would try to get at least some separation between the beach and where it is, just because of the, you know, boats and kids are not necessarily a good mix, and the operating capability of some boaters is better than others, and the activities of some kids may be more better behaviors than others. So some separation between where the children are and they're playing and jumping off those docks. They don't always jump off on the right side, but they jump off. You know, kids are kids. I would try to keep it down here a little bit farther down.
Well, that's what
Maybe somewhere halfway between the playground and the beach, so that there is a fence area that keeps the kids up at the playground and at the Dunmill. Some safety from that surface, and gets the boating and dock away from the beach.
Okay. Councillor
Yeah.
McKeon.
There's information from you, Mr. Mayor, about potentially putting some money in for expansion to the nursing station. I'm wondering if it'd be appropriate to look at, like the nursing station roof, for instance, it came in at $6,800 and we had $15,000 in there last year in the budget. I wonder if we could put some money in for just a preliminary review at least of the grounds and feasibility of expanding the nursing station.
That is under, I think that is under other on the next page, am I right, Michelle?
Specified?
I think that's where we have, see, there's an item entitled municipality facility renovation, which we'll come to.
That,
Oh.
if I may, that dollar amount might be a little bit light, actually, but it could all be included in that item as we sort of move forward with how we're going to manage the facilities, yeah.
Yeah, it's not, anyway, it's not, it isn't in here at the moment, but we need to put something there, but I was thinking we would come to it later, I guess.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, but, so just hold the thought for,
I
you
was
know,
just looking
yeah.
at the unspent.
Yeah,
money.
it is a facility, yeah, I know what you mean.
And there had been money in there for the nursing station, which, as CEO suggests, is probably light. The difference is still $7,000, so it,
Oh, yeah, I see, so I see where you're coming from, so, okay.
15 versus.
Left over.
Anyway, if we will address it, that's fine. I believe that was your suggestion that we consider.
Yes, it was and is, yeah. So, okay, so there's, I mean, you know, maybe we'll come back to that. Anyway, how about recreation?
Can I have a couple
Oh,
questions?
Oh, sorry, we're not done facilities.
The electronic noise sign out here, and I'm certainly not trying to say we don't need an electronic sign here, but there's a yet to be announced item that I alluded to last night that we can't kind of announce, but let me just say, I think it's pretty good chance there's going to be an electronic sign out there anyway. So I guess the question is, do we really want two electronic signs right across the way from one another, or can we use everything on one? You know, I'm saying, you know, council meetings are here, and do it as one project as opposed to two separate projects. So I'd ask maybe the CAO to comment on that.
Yes, that absolutely makes sense. This item was put in the budget before the announcement that you can't make was made. So it makes sense that there should be one shared sign. Yeah, absolutely.
I suppose the question is, though, if there's only going to be one sign, raises the question of which side of the road it should be on, and number one, number two, whether there's sufficient money. This particular item that was here for, that's under the facilities heading is $35,000. That's what a large sign is, you know, something that would replace the sign that we have here is going to cost. So I think that's, maybe we don't solve that problem today, and I'm not sure, I don't know if I see the wisdom of having, if it were to be allowed to by the authorities to have two electronic signs across the road from each other. I don't get that, but it may require if you're going to have one sign and it's going to serve the needs of the whole municipality, then it's probably going to need to be bigger and it's going to cost more.
I don't disagree with it probably costing more, and certainly we want the right sign. My guess is the announcement that can't be made that it probably needs to be located on the property of the announcement that it can't be made, because it's tied in that way. I don't think the application that was made for the funding wasn't for the community, it was for the library.
No, I
So,
understand
yeah.
that, and I'm.
But whether
questioning.
the amount is enough or not, I don't know. We may have to supplement it to make it a proper kind of sign that can fit everyone. I just don't think we should have two across the street competing. I don't even know whether that'd be allowed, but who knows? But everyone else, as you go through McKellar and other places, they've got electronic signs.
Yeah.
And I think they're a heck of a lot better than us sending staff out all the time, putting, A's and B's and ones and twos out there. So I'm very much in support of electronic signs. It's just, and maybe it's to be determined next month when we might be able to make that announcement.
Yeah, I support that concept for sure. Councillor
Maya?
Senior Blockage. Or Matthews. You did a search for a sign for the Lions Club and found that it was interesting dealing with our authorities.
There's a lot of rules.
As to where it could go, but at least it would potentially be on, say, a new property as part of the overall design or something conceptually. It could be beautifully established maybe
Yeah.
with the new library.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, so I don't know what we can do
To
with
be
that.
determined.
Did you have another question on facilities, or can we?
I thought I did, just hold on a second here. No, where's the accessibility? Oh, it's under recreation, sorry, okay, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to recreation then. And there are, okay, so the only items that are here are the park sign and shrubs adjacent to the new fence and the accessibility path. Now, these are items that were left over from the playground project, correct?
That's correct.
And the monies that are shown as carryover are those monies that are in the playground reserve, or are these monies from that we're getting from other places?
Is there a playground reserve still, Pat?
I think they could be funded from playground reserve, yes, if that's what you wanted to do.
If I may, there's some uncertainty about the sign. A couple of folks were going to look at sign options late in the year, and it just didn't seem to happen. So that 7,000 may be a bit high, but there's definitely some concerns about the fence that was put up, and it makes sense to put some shrubs in front of it or behind it for aesthetics. The sunshade is something that just didn't happen last year. We didn't get time to research and figure out what was really needed on the beach, but that's still a project that's important. And Brian can speak to the accessibility path. We clearly didn't imagine the costs and the installation issues that Brian has encountered.
Through your worship, the path that was originally thought of would have gone from the playground itself to overlap with the concrete surface at the Dundle. In order to extend that all the way down where the drip line problem is off of the facility, the washout that occurs along there all the time in Big Rapid Gulch. That same path material could be extended down all the way down towards the change rooms. And so you have a consistent product there that's wheelchair accessible and creates a good surface. It's the type of thing that what you do is you roll it up in the fall and store it and bring it out in the spring and put it back in place after you just level up the granular base. similar to the launch ramp, an excavation would be done to create a granular base underneath it, so it doesn't puddle up and pond up with water. And then this product rolls out on top. It's called a Moby mat.
Pardon?
Moby mat.
Moby man,
The closest one that I know of course, in Parry Sound, and it's on the Newtown Beach. It runs down on top of the sand, right down into the water, so that folks with, that are handicapped or limited mobility can actually get down into the water, and then it's rolled up in the fall, or way rolled out again in the spring.
Grant?
Yeah, I mean, I know the accessibility path was always in the plans, and I'm not against it. Is this not something that we could search a grant or something for, you know? Accessibility is, you know, obviously as we reach towards whatever 2025 is more and more going to be ramping up. And I just think this begs for us to kind of look to some society or somewhere where we can say, you know, can you assist us, as opposed to us, you know, just funding it, but maybe, you know, are you saying it's in reserves?
There is enough, the reserve for playground equipment was 17,000, the thrift shop gym was liquidated 1,000, so it's up to 18.
Okay,
Is the reserve for the playground.
and we've got enough money to spend 15, eh?
It was actually, it would be 20, 5 and 15, so we're just slightly short of.
So it's 20,000 for the access. I don't know. Well, can we look for grants?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, maybe over the next month or so, you can come up with a grant or something that we can apply for.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Just a question. It seemed like the access along the very side of the pavilion, inside the post, was that not sufficient for wheelchair access and such, right along the wall? I can't remember what the distance was out, but I remember looking at it with someone at one point, and the thought was that you could access your way across until you got to the end of the pavilion, and then we'd need a proper surface down into the playground area.
Through your worship, that may well be wide enough. What the playground plan called for was
Plan, yeah.
the outside of that concrete surface and a new concrete down the place.
Just thinking of another task fall and spring, of putting it down, taking it up, rolling it up, and
Yeah.
storing it. You know, maybe we could put something on that concrete that would be rubberized, or maybe what's existing would be usable. I don't know.
I'm sure there's alternatives.
Anyway. So leave that in.
That's a question.
All right, so we're getting close to an hour and a half into the meeting here. We have, under the other, the only item, well, there's, the only item that is showing as a sort of a due item is this municipality facility renovation. Before we talk about that, I just note there is an item labeled Pool and Wellness Center, and you will notice that we contributed some money to the feasibility study. This Pool and Wellness Center is the one that is proposed to be built in Parry Sound, and there's a fairly large committee that is looking at various aspects of it. In fact, there are a lot of different groups involved in trying to provide oversight for that. But there is, right now there is a grant application in place for federal infrastructure funding that goes through the province. Province recommends it to the federal government. It's federal money, right? So we won't know what the province is recommending until probably May. So And it's a big project. It's a $30+ million project, so capital project. So obviously, we don't know if there's any cost implication for Whitestone if assuming we agreed to support the project, which we won't make any final decisions on that till we find out, till a bunch more work is done and we find out what external funding there is, of course. Because if the municipalities in West Parry Sound have to pony up the $30 million, it's not going to happen, I would say. But there's a positive optimism that a good chunk of that money will come from the federal government. And if it does, then the question is how much is left. And so I simply point out to you that that's an item, it's another one of these items where we're not in a position to put anything in the budget right now. We're I guess it says due diligence ongoing. Is that the? Yeah. So anyway, that's I just mentioned that so that people don't forget about it. It could come up. It will come up again later on this year once things settle down and we know where we stand. Municipality facility renovation. There are essentially two things that have become apparent over the last little while that involve municipal facilities where we may need additional space. And the two buildings in particular are the nursing station and the municipal office complex, the office part of the municipal office complex. If you've spent any time down there in the municipal office complex, you'll realize that the office itself is chock-a-block. There's not really enough room for people and to work effectively, and there's not much space available if you want to have a private meeting. You need to have a meeting with the building official or with someone who comes in to deal with a planning issue or something else. So we're anticipating, and we're at the stage where we're just looking at what's possible to rearrange. We've got a site over there. If you look at it, the buildings are located in various places, and the office and fire complex is here, and then we've got the nursing station and the LCBO and so on. So they're each occupying space, and none of them were arranged for expansion. So there needs to be some sort of site planning work done, I think, to start with, to see what's possible. And that's kind of where we are. And there might be some possibilities to do some renovations in this fiscal year. As far as the nursing station is concerned, we have been advised that there is an opportunity to expand the services that are offered in the nursing station. And of course, the services piece of it, like it's our building, but the services piece of it is funded by the West Parry Sound Health Center. And it appears that because the movement to that the province is making towards health teams and looking at how services are delivered may present an opportunity for more services to be developed, to be delivered through this particular nursing station, which I would point out to you, we were reminded of this recently, is actually servicing residents in the McKellar to Magnetawan corridor, because there are no nursing stations within that envelope. And there had been at one time discussions about possibly putting something in Magnetawan or whatever, and I gather the thought is, well, we have a nursing station here, and it seems to be accessible to the folks that are using it right now. In fact, the demand is pretty much at capacity for that facility. Anyway, we've been advised that there may be operating funds that would allow them to extend their hours, perhaps have some additional staff and that sort of thing, if there was space to put them. So, again, this is something, there is a committee that oversees the nursing station. Councillor McEwen is on it and that committee is looking at, well, what are the functional requirements for an expanded facility. So we're a ways away from contemplating doing anything about it, but there would need to be some money spent in the short term to figure out, to get a functional plan together and figure out how the building itself could be expanded if what options exist for expanding it. So that's sort of in general what this item is about. It was kind of almost a placeholder for looking at possibilities for renovation. That's my best explanation to you of where it's coming from. We can have some discussion. It might not be enough money, I don't know. We could have some discussion about it. If councillors would like, or did you want to add anything to?
I did. I actually have a question for Pat. Pat, under other, we've got library expansion, and it shows 219 actuals of 75,000. I don't think it's that amount yet. Would that be correct?
I put the difference, I created a reserve, so I put the difference in a reserve, so it's there. I think we spent 12,000, so I put 63,000 away.
Okay, so you're just
So
contemplating
I
that.
created a library reserve, and that difference I put away.
Okay, thanks for that explanation.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
I just might add from the committee that there was an ad hoc committee established from the nursing station committee, and basically it was a fact-finding exercise, and those folks approached the West Roselle Health Center and in cooperation with the nurse here and the staffing people who come out from Prairie Sound, facilities-wise and such, and we're looking at equipment and tried to establish what services would be and should be provided in Whitestone. So they did a fair study internally in the little group, and then had to go to the health center for their blessing, of course, for the staffing part of it and equipment part of it as well, which are pretty big components of it. And they'd asked me if I would talk to the CBO, building inspector, see if in fact it was at all feasible to even contemplate putting it on the existing property with the septic and the water system and the existing building. And so we've kind of determined that it looks like, in all practicality, it could be feasible, but we'd have to have someone do a design and say, yes, it can be fit into this area, and conceptually, this is what we would want as a building. There were some different ideas floated, and one was maybe not a full-blown brick and mortar Taj Mahal kind of addition to the existing, which is pretty basic, but maybe bring in modular sort of conceptual design to try to keep costs down and see what we can come up with. So it's just a total fact-finding exercise, and now I guess to the point that we've got the blessing of the health center after having a meeting with them. And I don't know, did we receive a letter from them directly after our little meeting there a week or so ago? I believe Mr. Sanderson was going to.
We have not received anything.
I haven't seen it, no.
But anyways.
But he did say he would do one.
We felt pretty assured from them when we came out of there. So the amount that we put aside at this time in the budget to look at preliminary design, I guess that's what the question's all about. Mr. Mayor, you'd suggested $7,500, if that would be a starting point.
Yes, and I don't, well, I'm not even sure that number is enough. I think this is just kind of a preliminary discussion to see where we're at about it. But, yeah, it is, that particular, the nursing station piece, as far as this year is concerned, is not, I wouldn't consider it to be a big ticket item. I don't think that there's any suggestion that we would actually be, doing any construction or in this particular year, just knowing the timing of how things usually go. Do you agree with that?
Oh, certainly.
Yes, we can, okay.
Still in the
So-
fact-finding
So
part of
it's,
the exercise.
we're still at the early stages, so just didn't want to lose sight of it, that's all. Any other comments or questions about anything on capital? I guess we should move on soon to the operating budget. Yes.
Other than to say, I've been counsel in this debate, it's been very good and positive. It's probably the first time in a lot of years that we haven't sort of, I'd like going to capital first kind of versus the other way around, because we've ignored some projects. There's a lot of things on here that I think are going to be really great for the community at the end of the day, and so I think it's great.
Okay, thank you. Can we then move on to, sorry? Okay, so had our 5 minutes plus a little bit. I'd like to move on to the operating budget, and I wonder if we could do it this way. There are many, many items, and we'll try to allow as many questions as we can until we run out of time. But I wonder if we could start by just looking quickly at the revenue side, and I know there are a lot of items there, but perhaps we could ask our treasurer to just highlight the significant things in terms of revenue, like, the revenue that we've received in previous years and are not getting, and any other significant changes that we think are going to happen. I know you've got a sort of a high-level report on it that we already saw, but perhaps just talk about that, and then we'll try to do the same thing with on the expense side when we're finished. We'll look at what are the significant variances in expense, and hit the high stuff, from a keeping materiality in mind. So try to go for the bigger numbers. Is that a reasonable ask, Pat?
Sure, that's fine.
Thank you.
So just for comparison, the 2020 budget does not have the school boards in it yet. So if you're looking at the final numbers, just be aware that for 2019, the school boards are in it. If you take the school boards out, we're looking at $5.4 million, not $6.4 million. We did not
Just hold on. Right, thank you.
We did not draw on any debt as originally budgeted for 2019, so instead of again $6.4 million, you would be looking at $5.7 million. So just for comparison, just remember there's some apples to apples going on here. It's too soon to cost out the school boards for 2020, so that's not in the revenue as of yet.
Will we have that for March, for our March meeting when we come
Yes.
back to do budget?
So I actually just did get the number like the other day, so it has gone down slightly. It's like 0.00153 instead of 0.00161. So the school board taxes have gone down slightly. So it's pricing it all out and then just figuring out what, but it's in and out for us, like we
Oh, yeah,
collect it,
what-
we send it. But it does appear on the revenue on the one side and then on the expense on the other side. So it's just to make sure you've got all the parts in or out. So it's
But I guess from the point of view of the ratepayer, it's actually, that's,
It's a lower rate, yes.
that shaves a few dollars. If your assessment is the same, so it was last year, that shaves a few dollars off the education
It will.
tax dollars that you're paying, so.
The other differences I want to point out, cannabis, we ended up getting 15,944 from the implementation fund. I have heard nothing on this issue, so I'm not, I think by now we would have heard something. Line item 15401. So we did get 15,944. I have nothing budgeted for 2020 because I have no indication if we'll be getting any more grants for that. The Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, 15505, we received 957,400 last year. We will be getting 966,000, so there was a slight increase. That is confirmed. Unfortunately, the one-time unconditional 531,000, we do not get that this year. So that's what was really a benefit for us last year. 50,000 in OSIP funding is the same. Gas tax, unfortunately, we got double the amount last year. We're only getting 55,576. So the OSIP funding and the gas tax funding, unique to the other funding, it has to be specific for roads maintenance. We can't use it.
What does OSIP sound? What does
Ontario
it?
Continuous Improvement Fund.
Ontario Continuous Improvement, okay.
So they were a little more generous last year, federal and provincial, than they are this year. So those are probably the major ones. I have not put anything in for municipal sale of land. We had 24,000 this year. I'm not positive that there's anything planned for this year. I don't know if there's a little more that we could be putting in this year.
Can I just, sorry, can I just for a sec come back to the cannabis? It says it's under grants federal, but that was actually provincial money, wasn't it? Was it not?
It wasn't one time, I thought it was federal. I could double check that.
Because we received, well, you remember the discussion. If you chose to opt out and say we will not allow cannabis retail in our community, you didn't get it.
No, yeah, didn't get it.
That was a provincial funding.
Cannabis line.
And it would be a reasonable question for us to ask the Ministry of the Attorney General, who is responsible for this, how much money are we getting and when? Surely everybody else would, every other municipality in Ontario is going to want to know, right? So maybe AMO knows or knows when we're going to find out, or if not, I would call the Attorney General's office and say, we want to know. Ask him, tell him we want to know.
We got some money just because, and then we got some money just
Yeah.
plugged it in, and that's all I've heard, so I can ask him.
Did we ever find out if we can use that money towards our policing costs or anything like that? You know, that would offset some of our costs for this year.
I believe it was only if you actually had a store, and then you had additional security involved, then you could. But if you
No.
don't open up a retail store.
No, that's not, sorry.
So, no, the money that we received,
Oh,
how can we spend it? Like we were talking before, how we could spend that money that we received. And we were discussing, you know, could we use it to offset some of our policing costs? You know, our bill that we get from the OPP or something like that. Did we
well,
ever find that out?
my understanding was that they don't have an accountability mechanism for the funds, so, and maybe they're going to at some point in time, but we were gonna, you know, we're just taking it into general revenue. We could say,
Right.
we could spend it to put the tires on the fire truck if we wanted, I guess, but,
No, we had a luncheon party.
well,
I'm kidding, we did.
anyway, I can't say definitively, and that's one of the, I guess that's one of the things that I would expect AMO to be chasing down with the government where it is. Like they have policy people that you know have these files, right? Because what municipalities want to know is what do we do with the money, and when do we get it, and all that kind of thing. So they may know from some discussions as to what's going on, because they're acting for 400 municipalities in Ontario, right? Not the, and so if they ask a question, that's the same as the minister getting 400 letters or phone calls, right? So they will generally get a meeting with somebody, some policy person in the minister's office, and they'll sit down and thrash it out and say, well, this is what municipalities are going to want, and you better have an answer for it. Anyway, that's, I probably shouldn't say, I don't know for sure what we can spend it on, but what did we do with what we got last year? Did we put it in a reserve, or did we just put it in revenue?
Yeah.
We just absorbed it into general revenue.
Yeah. Okay. Well, nobody's gonna put us in jail for it. They didn't tell us what to do with it, so.
To the diners.
Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to spend so much time on cannabis.
Oh, that's, I'll try
Yeah.
and find out some more information. I did apply for the summer student grant. We'll see what happens with that. We do have a grant from Orange that helps with the helipad maintenance for $3,500. I have upped the licenses by slightly, a little bit more than what we had budgeted for permits and buildings. I think that's about it. So I could add something into the sale of municipal land, and I have estimated out transfers in from reserves, and also estimated out our funding for debt financing, which brings us down to the $5,301,000.
And so you said education was in the last year's numbers, but not in the 2020 number, right? So.
One other thing to point out is we're doing good on the interest income from our bank accounts. Moving the payment date from September to August has sort of streamlined our receipts so that there was a tendency to fall into overdraft every so often at the beginning of the year before the billing cycle happened, and then towards the end of the year before the second billing cycle happened. So the interest income has increased, and with the promotion for the pre-authorized payment, that should make it even better. We can offer a monthly payment plan to the taxpayer, so it'll even out our cash flow even more.
Okay, are there any questions about the revenue piece before we dig into expenses? Okay. Let's try and go through as much as we can. What are the significant things in general government? The significant increases. Or decreases, I suppose.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, so through the salaries, this year we will have a full complement of staff. Last year we had maternity leave and filled by a contract position, so it was slightly lower than budget. This year, and as well as the deputy clerk position, this year we will have a full year of the two positions, so that's a slight increase in the salaries. The loan for the building will disappear in November of 2020, so that will be $120,619. HR contingency is a little bit lower. I'm not sure if there should be something additional in that number. Audit and legal fees, I'm not sure if that's high enough.
The election, the fees that are listed as election fee, election management, those are, is that a retainer that we pay regardless of whether those people do any work or not?
Mr. Mayor, there's a company we use called DataFix that helps us manage our information piece, and you can purchase this service at the time of the election, or you can purchase it for equal payments prior to the election, and that's what we opted to do. So we didn't budget last year because I wasn't aware of the option, but we did move forward with that agreement, and we've budgeted this year, so it's equal payment. So when it comes to the election year, we're not hit with a significant cost.
Councillor Lamb?
The audit fees, we budgeted 70, we spent 55, and this year we're budgeting 50. Why are the audit fees going down?
It's not really audit, it's legal. Audit was fairly consistent, it's the legal fees.
Oh, it's the
that
legal
moved that.
expenses.
So it's in one, I can separate it out, but it's in one category. The audit's it's about 15,000,
Okay.
but legal
Yep.
moved that.
Yeah, if I can interject, I would separate those two out simply because it's, I mean, when you're looking at the tidying up the chart of accounts, because I think they're kind of different, The audit fee is a standard amount that we kind of pay every year to have an audit. The legal fees are somewhat discretionary and will go up and down, right? So.
Yeah, is that all legal fees? We pay for various things, because, you get into tax sales, you get into negotiations, all those sorts of things, or advice from lawyers on any number of things. All the legal fees
Yes,
are
it's all
lumped
one.
into here, are they?
Yes.
Okay, and you're saying that was approximately 40 grand or so? Okay, thank you.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just a
Councillor
question
McKinnon.
on 16155, that's the debenture payment for the admin and fire department. It ends in November, so would the 2020 possibly not reflect one less month of payment there?
It could be slightly less, yes.
Slightly less,
Yes, by 1 month,
okay.
so I can
Not,
reduce that.
not a factor of 1/12 or something, that's 12 months,
I'll look into that. I'm thinking it could be slightly less, yes.
yeah.
I was going to ask a question. There's an item here that it's 16118, admin financial expense. And it looks like it's Whitestone Lake Reserve, Sev P and something. It was $4,000 budget. It was a whole bunch more. I don't even know what it is. Never mind why it was so much more than it. I see that the budget for it is still there and it's back at 4,100. What is this thing?
That is the Whitestone Lake Resort severance. So that happened, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. And I think the owner, it was a number of companies, severed it into 4 different lots. But the follow-up on the impact, assigning the new road numbers to be able to bill was slow, and I think for the staff, it wasn't really kind of monitor or maintain. So we had agreed to write off some taxes that were owed on the newly created property just to catch them up to date. So there was a write-off. That's also where anything to do with finance expense goes as well, but that's the majority of it was for the Whitestone Lake Resort severance.
Okay, but how long, so why was it 9931 instead of 4,000 and we obviously think it's 40, it should be 4,100 or something. What, like, why is it, why would it vary from year to year? And how long does it go for?
Well, it was a special write-off, like a one-time write-off, when the MPAC had caught up with assigning the roll numbers, and so there was additional billings that went out, and there was some confusion as to who owed what. I think the lawyers dropped the ball on when they did the purchase and sale transaction. So it was a one-time hit that we took, but I don't see that happening going forward.
So, but why is it 4,100 this year?
I was just basing it off of the 2019 budget, but I could take it down,
Okay, but it sounds like you're saying we're writing it off at the amount of, a certain amount of money every year. For how many years?
No, well, I mean, there's also, if you want to build in, if you get into tax arrears, there's a certain allowance for doubtful accounts that you have to calculate it, so it's more of a calculation through the auditors for potential write-offs every year.
Oh, so it's an allowance for doubtful
Yeah. So there's a
accounts.
one-time-
Oh, all right, sorry,
there's a
I,
one-time write-off from the Whitestone Lake Resort.
okay,
And
sorry,
there's an
I,
allowance that's sort of- and it comes out at year end, we do a calculation on what's out in arrears, what we think we can recoup, and what they'll agree to write off or not. So they do want us to create a little bit of an allowance for doubtful accounts.
okay, well, thank you. That, could I suggest that you, instead of calling that financial expense, call it allowance for doubtful accounts, right? Because that's, then I would, and other people would perhaps understand what it is. Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, just a couple of travel accounts, et cetera. There's, up at the top there, it says Roma Agro. We overspent, and yet we put the budget back down. For instance, at admin travel expenses, we spent 6,300, we budgeted 35, and we've got it back in at 35 again. So why wouldn't we have it at, are we planning to travel less this year than last year? Or is there
I was told there was nobody attending the AGRA, Good Growth Association this year.
That is correct.
Yeah, last year there were two separate meetings and we sent people to both of them.
Okay,
This
we
year,
didn't send- okay,
this year we
well,
didn't
that's
send
fine.
anybody to Ogra. We
Okay,
just
well,
to Roma, so.
Okay, good, and that reflects also then, I guess, on the other one. Okay, thank you.
And those two are done, right?
Yeah, they are.
They're over for the year as we speak.
Okay. Move on.
Anything else under admin, or are we good? All right, let's go then to, sorry, under general, calling it admin, general government. Protection to persons and property. We have fire and we have, there's another somewhere. Okay, other protection, but. Questions about those? Again, are there any significant, I suppose I should ask, are there any significant items here? There's the fire services, there was the fire involving CN, we got money back from them eventually, right?
We've got that money back, we got it back last year.
Yeah. So that's, obviously, we're not budgeting for that this year.
Hopefully not.
But, and the helipad was already mentioned, so we're. Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, I just, the first line, wages, we put in 78, we spent 64, and we're putting 85 in, so I just, why is that?
Well, it was mostly because of the CPI increase of 1.7.
Oh, but we only spent 64 last year.
Yeah, I can't guarantee, I base it on 25 firefighters showing up on every call. I can't guarantee how many are going to show up every time, so.
But is that the right basis then? Why don't you just reduce it to 20, put in the right amount? Because, you know, what you're doing is, you've got a budget that's 85,000 this year, that you only spent 64 last year based on 25 showing up, but obviously they don't show up. So, you know, I just see a big variance there. And also in the third line, fire, it says new recruits, 20,000, we spent 3,800, and we got 20,000 in again. So I see like $35,000 in there or something, that, or 30 or whatever, that seems high to me. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Just on the salary, so there's still some adjustments to be made for year end. Reversal of salary accruals for 2019, and then an additional accrual for 2020. Because fire is the first day of the month for the previous month, I have to make an accrual still for the December salaries, which ends up in January 2020, so it's part of the whole year end.
So you're just saying that the figure's wrong?
Well, there's 1 month shy because it's
Okay.
beginning of the month for the prior month, so the salaries here are a little bit understated on the 2019 actuals.
Okay, good. So back to my new recruits, we put 20,000 in, we spent 3,800, we got 20,000 in this year.
Right, we had 2 new firefighters join this year, we had 2 firefighters leave this year, or last year. So we didn't need as much equipment last year. So typically, we try to bring on 5 firefighters a year. Last year, we brought on 2, with 2 left, so we're basically exchanging one equipment for the other, so we really didn't spend a lot of money.
So how much do we pay to equip a new recruit if
About
someone
$5,000.
wasn't equipped? How much?
About $5,000.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Question for the treasurer, and this isn't specific to fire, I just see it noted here. Are you expecting insurance rates to be similar this year? I see you've made a guess with fire, and I know you've made guesses other places.
So far, just we should be going through the renewal, so May would be the renewal. April with the data collection, I'm told right now that our premium should not change, like not significantly. Last year we added cyber insurance, so there was a little bit of an increase in the premium, but there was a decrease in the regular general property casualty and liability. So not yet, but I will double check with our brokers.
Okay, thanks, Brad.
Any other questions about fire? How about other protection? Is there anything in there? You can see that our policing levy is basically remaining unchanged, we believe. Incidentally, I noticed and there's a kind of a comments column over on the right-hand side, and when you look at the totals, it'll say a percentage, but it says, they all say, they have a minus sign on them if the amount went up. Is that, is that backwards, or?
Is compared to budget, not actual. I can show both.
Oh, so that is the actual to, but is the comparison of.
It's compared to 2019 budget.
It's 2019 actual to budget, it's not the budget to budget for,
It is 2020 budget to 2019 budget. So you can see 2020's gone up slightly, so because it's an expense, it is unfavorable.
oh, you mean because it's an expense, it's got,
So it's an increase in expense.
so that's why it has a minus sign in front of it?
Yes.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Treasurer.
I wondered that too.
No, I know it's a computer program that does it, I just wonder.
If it was revenue, it would be favorable. If it was revenue, it would be favorable.
Yeah, I get you. I understand, okay. Okay. So, are we ready to move on to building? Sounds like we are. How about building?
I can add the and safety in 2019. And there was some, because of the change in vehicles, there was some snow tires purchased in 2019, which is not reflected in 2020.
I noticed that there is an expense here that was incurred, not budgeted last year, incurred this year. It's a very small one, but for our planner, John Jackson, is this,
This is-
when it's under the building department, does that mean that the building official needed to consult with him for something? Is that
That's correct.
what caused that? Okay.
Usually a zoning issue.
So it's not the rest of it would be under planning somewhere, I guess. All right. Questions on, any other questions on building department that anybody have? I don't know, I just want to see if I had any notes here on building department. Oh, never mind. That takes us to transportation services, which is mostly roads in this case. Roads and or other works equipment. Our total transportation budget has actually gone down by, what are we talking, 12,000 bucks nearly? Is that right? Anything, any significant things that we should note there?
Out of the road manager's control is the debt portion that's towards the bottom. So because we did draw, we had no increased debt costs that were originally budgeted for. And then the 2020 budget is significantly reduced as well because the financing loans have been converted to debentures. So the financing loan for the garage and the bunny trail construction, that's the conversion we did, so I think it was through the mid-year, in the summer. So it is a lot less expensive.
Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, just two questions. First line, wages, and maybe it's because we're now up to complement or something, but again, we budgeted 368 last year, so that would have included, but we only spent 309, and now we're at 462 or so this year. Is that because we went up to snuff or something?
Yes, so we were understaffed last year, and this year is planning to be fully staffed. And there is a bit of an overlap with the change in roads manager as well for
Okay.
this year.
If I may.
The next one is on the next.
Sorry, the clerk was going to comment.
Oh, sorry.
briefly
I just
if
had a little more information. So as council recalls, in last year's budget, you approved the lead hand position.
Right.
And so about mid-year, that lead hand was hired. And so you would have seen that reflected in the expenses. And we also moved the facilities person to a full-time permanent position. And that affected, so that's, we as in Pat, budget at job rate. So that's another explanation.
The only other question I have on this is 16440 roads grant. You know, again, it was 86.5 last year, and we spent 77,000. We historically have put that up. I'm not suggesting we put it up. That's been growing at the rate of about 10% a year, but there's no increase really put in here. I would suggest to you that we could easily leave it at the 86 because there's a group of roads that you know don't apply for the grant, but they're certainly eligible for it,
Yes.
right? So you don't want to sort of under budget. And I would put to you that we should give some increase to the roads grant, be it, 5% or 3% or something in there, versus, and we don't even have, you don't have to really affect the budget that much. All you have to do is adjust the formula, right? So that the roads that are using it are using more of that money. So I suggest.
So, yeah, there's no increase in here for that.
There's no increase, so I would suggest that staff look at an increase and come back to us with something. Thank you.
I have a quick question for Brian. When my turn comes again.
No, go ahead.
Brian, account 16380, which is snowplow goods and services. And when we were short staff last year, you hired Schlager Construction to do some snow plowing for us. We budgeted 7,000 this year. Do you feel that that's still necessary to be there?
Through your worship, I don't know if the full 7 is going to be needed, but what I've also done this year is when we've been short-staffed, we've used the contractor to plow in the village here. So there's still an increase, an amount that's incurring against that by using that contractor for the village.
Okay, anything else on transportation?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, one, most have been answered, but one that I had flagged here was the road grants. And it was evident when I started signing checks this past year that we had given a 10% increase to the road grant recipients last year, and it had never come up during the budget meeting. So I was a little disappointed that we hadn't discussed it. But under the circumstances we're in with the mayor and such, I didn't bring it forward. But I think the formula is working pretty well without adding more payout to the road grants, as stated here for the 2020 draft. So I'm not sure if the intention was to give instruction to staff to increase the payout. Is that what Councillor Lamb was asking?
I was saying that I thought they should look at it and come back with something, yes, rather than leave it at 0.
What caused it to go up 10% last year?
I was instructed by the mayor to increase the calculation by 10%. So it's based on kilometers of road and number of households. So it was in the budget at 10%, and I was instructed to increase the calculation by that as well, because it had not been done for a few years or a couple of years in the past.
Okay, that's a council,
I can
my
clarify.
interpretation is that's a council policy item, not something where,
I can give you the history on it. From when it went in, there was a 10% increase each and every year, except for 1 year, which I think was 2 years ago, when it was 0, okay? But every other year, and you can check that out and come back to us, it's gone up 10%, okay? And I get into a long debate. I can certainly bring back the number of private and unassumed roads and the $70,000 that we put in it versus, half the number of, in terms of kilometers, assumed roads where we put 1 year it was $2 million into it, right? So, I think it's a wonderful program and I want to keep supporting it. And I would put to you that there's an awful lot of roads associations that would say yay with me, but anyway. So I think staff should come back. I'm 100% for it. And I think during the election, everyone said they were too, so I think you should look at an increase for it.
but sorry, we're talking about two different things here. You're talking about the number of people that take it, the number of roads that take advantage of, you're talking about what the budget item is, not what the formula is that.
No, I'm talking What we're doing in, yeah, we're
The-
putting basically $70,000 or $80,000 into.
But we didn't, if somebody applied for a road grant 10 years ago, and the road hasn't changed, the amount that they get every year hasn't gone up by 10% every year, right?
It sure has.
It's the budget that's got, not that individual gets hasn't gone up 10%.
Yes, it does. It's growing every single year. Every time you put a 10% increase through, we're adjusting the formula by 10% and everybody's getting more money. It's exactly what's happened.
But we didn't, when we, I mean, I was here when we approved road grants for like 5 years now. I thought we were talking about how much money we put into the budget, not what the rate was at which it was paid.
Right.
No, we haven't adjusted, excuse me, I think we're talking the same thing. We haven't adjusted the formula. We haven't said, we've adjusted the amount that's apportioned to each road by 10%. It's gone up by 10%. But we haven't changed the formula in the sense of, added 10% more houses or put 10% more in terms of the length of the road. But every year, the grants that may have been 8 years ago $1,000 are probably now $1,600 or something, and they're growing every year. And that's what's happened for the history of the thing.
Mr. Mayor, I beg to differ on that because since 15, there were no increases since this previous council was in. And we froze it, and there were no increases to the rate, to the road owners. And
If-
that was the
well,
point,
well,
the
I
point
think
of contention was that we were putting 10% on the budget and nothing was going to the folks who were recipients of the money. And the contention out in the public was that that's fine. They're beginning to accept the road grant protocol as being a really good service to people, but they weren't accepting the fact that it was potentially going up 10% a year. So in my determination, it hasn't gone up 10% except for last year, and it went up without council's blessing because the mayor instructed that it go up 10%. That wasn't determined until after the budget.
Respectfully, I'll, agree to disagree. Staff can look at it and come back with the right answer, right? I understand it's different. And I would put, I know our grant's gone up by every year, so it hasn't stayed the same. And so anyway, you can come back and check it out and come back, right?
Okay, yeah, we're not going to solve it today, obviously, I guess. I'm not objecting. I am simply trying to find out what the what the thing is, because my understanding of what we approved as council was based on the assumption that more people were taking advantage of it, not that the same number of people were getting more money each time. And I'm not saying there's something wrong with that. It's just that I was sitting at the table here and that didn't register on me that that's what that's what was implied by anyway. We'll get it sorted out. Is there anything? I guess we're done with roads, are we? Next one is environmental services. That's landfill and so on. We have a fair, I guess the very first item, we have a fair increase in terms of landfill wages, and there's a note, reallocate between roads, facilities, actual versus budget. What we took,
For your process, I have to reallocate the salaries because there was individuals last year budgeted in different departments and then they were transferred over. Or they were not hired, they were hired in another area, so I have to do a reallocation between roads and facility and landfill.
so is this the right number or is it going to change? I guess that's what I'm trying to,
The 2020 budget?
yes.
Yes, that is with the full complement of staff. So that is 1 full-time, 2 part-time, and there's 2 casual that have been budgeted in for that for 2020.
Any other items here that stand out? Overall, our budget has, it doesn't actually say, but the little plus or minus percent number isn't there on that particular line, total environmental services, but it's gone up. It's gone up a fair amount, I guess, or it's projected to go up a fair amount from what we budgeted last year.
Can I ask Brian a question?
Yes.
Brian, account 16468, so this is specific to Ald's Road, and that's the waste connections. 16468, recycling, and also recycling for York landfill.
Yes.
So those costs for waste connections, which used to be BFI and used to be MCS out of Bracebridge, what's driving the increased costs?
There's two significant factors there, Your Worship. One is the reduction in the revenues on the stream. Part of that is the whole China thing, believe it or not. So we have less material that's being recovered and processed through plants that is then being shipped to China for reuse and redevelopment as a product. That's a big hit in the plastics area particularly. The other is that the fibers themselves, the market is virtually collapsing. It's gone from not too far in the past, we were getting $330 a ton, $340 a ton for hard pack fiber. Now you're getting $60 to $90. So that those two losses in return income increase the cost of us because it's certainly not carried by anybody else. That's the cost of paying this stuff. The other, of course, is as normal with most other industries, their cost for processing and managing those streams is also increased. So recycling and conversion on those streams that are currently in the mixed basket of goods and on the market is coming back to us on a higher cost line.
May I ask one more question?
Go ahead.
One more question, Brian.
Frankly, Your Worship, I'm not sure we've got enough budgeted in either of those two lines.
Brian, under brush grinding, I know last year you had high hopes to bring a grinder in here, and it was just impossible to get someone to come in. Nothing budgeted this year. Do you have a different plan to diminish the amount of brush?
Other than losing my high home. I don't have a concrete direction for brush. I think there's some options that have been put in front of council in those discussions, and council can consider to try and reduce that or send that elsewhere, divert it to something else. And that's what's going to help us in terms of volumes and capacity. Change in handling.
So I had a question. We have decided, and very recently, that we would treat metals as recycling as a revenue stream instead of what we're doing right now. Is that presumably that's going to have some impact on these numbers? Is that calculated in here at this point? I'm guessing not, right? Or
No, it's not calculated in here. I think your conclusion on that will come when you get the return of the RFP. And you see where the handling versus revenue stream and what happens with that balance. I believe that it will yield a valuable net revenue overall, but until we get those RFP responses, we're not going to know for sure what that helps.
so you're concerned that the total number is understated? Should we be looking at increasing it, in your opinion, or?
Your Worship, I was speaking specifically to the managing diversion streams through Waste Connections.
Yeah, oh, through Waste Connections specifically, so it's not,
Actually, I think there's 2 lines in this that are affected by that.
yeah.
The other lines that are affected are relative to things like Councillor McEwen was speaking to, in terms of more work on the site to reconfigure things, improve space and space use on the site, and also the handling. Your big success is going to come with the education and having staff out there that are more able to work with the public and change those directions with the public.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions about environmental services? Okay, let's move on to health services.
Both levies. As I say, these are both levies.
Yeah, I guess we can't do much about that.
Nope.
Anything under cemetery?
I can speak for the changes.
Sure.
There was, Stone Orchard was their cemetery software purchase last year, 2019, that was not budgeted for. There was some training to the Bereavement Association of Ontario. This year, they're looking into scattering rights, I think, in 3 cemeteries. And there was some shed maintenance last year in 2019.
So, what did the, are you thinking that there might be some increase in revenue to offset this small increase, or because you said they were looking at being able to disperse ashes, which they haven't done previously, right? So that I'm guessing there's a fee for that, is there? Yeah.
So it would be additional sales.
Yeah.
As well as additional like plot sales. So there would be an additional amount, yes. But we don't take that into account.
No.
Like we're running the expenses through this area. We're going to refund ourselves at year end because they do owe us, the municipality, some money because we helped pay some of the bills. But the increased revenue goes into 2 accounts for cemeteries. One's operating, one's care and maintenance to take care of the perpetual care. So any sales of the plot, a certain amount has to be brought over to care and maintenance, and it can't be touched. Any interest income earned off the account, you are allowed to use it for operating. So there is an operating account that will be reimbursing the municipality for some of these expenses. So there should be some additional revenue, yes, but you won't see that in our books.
Yeah, okay, I see.
Got something to add as well.
Hmm?
I've got something to add as well.
Go ahead.
So 2 things. Our treasurer spoke about fees. The cemetery board has approved some fee increases, which council would have seen last night, and we didn't focus on them, but that'll slightly increase revenues, not significantly. The other piece, and it's just recent after our treasurer had published this, is the cemetery board chair had suggested that they could use some help with the data entry into this new software program that they have. There's 2 folks that are doing it now on their own through a volunteer process, and there's just simply a lot of work to scan and do the data entry. So we're going to do a calculation to see if some of our staff could help, and then that would be charged to the cemetery board and paid for through the funding that they have, and we're working that out. We're looking at about $5,000 to $6,000, and it's just a one-time cost for getting their software up and running and all the data in there. So that'll be reflected when you see this budget again.
Okay. Social and family services. That's they're pretty much, I guess, Parry Sound Industrial Park is a levy too, is it right? They're all levies? Okay, that takes us to recreation and culture, which has, I didn't realize our facilities were recreation and culture, but I guess. So we have first the facilities budget, and then we have some other pieces after that. So, comments or questions on the facilities budget? I'm assuming that the comment that's been made about in other budgets with respect to the wages applies here as well. We have
The 2019 actuals reflect only the summer students, so the original weekend was not a full year, but it is for 2020.
under the item water maintenance, did us making potable water available from the tap outside here, does that change any of our, other than the capital costs of replacing some equipment, did that change any of our operating costs at all? Like, are we paying more now for testing or for?
I can't say that I can put the costs to that. I think the costs are from the increase in focus on the water systems, doing residual tests 3 times a week instead of 2, doing more maintenance of draining and cleaning, settling tanks, more maintenance on the filters. I think that's really what's affecting the cost. To say that the increase in water out here increased our chemical costs, I'm not really seeing that. And I don't think that I would suggest a decrease in the staffing commitment to the water system moving forward. I think we're getting very close to the right level of service level.
Okay, thank you. Are there other, Councillor McEwen?
Yeah, I noticed the Grange has $1,025 for building maintenance. Is that for re-cementing or something around the building, Brian, or do you recall why that's in this?
Through you, Your Worship, the thought I had was to, in the absence of doing anything else, get a bunch of quick set and see if something could be done to improve the trip and ankle breaker hazard of that floor.
Sorry,
Improve the condition of the floor.
floor itself.
Get rid of some of those bad breaks and
There's a hole in
ankle
there.
breakers and try and make it a little bit smooth.
Okay, that's what I wondered.
With quick set.
There are a few places on the outside that could just be pointed up to keep water out and just kind of a general maintenance. Yeah, okay.
So anything else under the facilities piece that you want to ask about? Or? All right, recreation. I might just comment on the recreation's budget itself. What you can see is here what the number that you saw last night has been placed into the, I think has been placed into the budget, correct?
That's correct.
The you might ask, well, what happened last year? The Recreation Committee did not, it kind of had a bit of a hiatus. As you perhaps know, we lost a number of people who were on the committee, and there were some activities that were planned that didn't take place, and there were some activities that didn't cost as much money as they had in previous years. You'll remember our fireworks that we didn't have to purchase the bulk of the fireworks because we had them left over from the year before when we couldn't use them and things of that sort. So I think the 6124 that was spent last year was it was an anomaly. Some of the budgeted expenditures just never took place. But the hope is that this year we will get back to do some more things, and there are some new items in the budget that you saw last night, replacing mats, installing the pickleball equipment and that sort of thing. So it's back up to that's why the number is back up to the range that it was in last year, and hopefully the committee will get on with some of these other things, and there will be more money. There's also things that kind of started last year. Arrangements were made to get access to movies so that we could have movie nights, and the intention was to have one a month. Well, there hasn't been one a month, but I think, as the year unfolds, you'll see more of that. So that will, that's an increased cost, reflecting essentially more recreation programming. So that's my explanation for that one. I don't know about the other. Maybe others you want to ask about? Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, I wonder if staff can supply me with what was spent in 2018 by recreation, not you, just get back to me on it. And the second thing is there a recreation plan? Is there a plan that says, here's where we are, here's what was canceled, here's what we plan to do next year, here's the new programs, here's the costs. I saw something, I thought last night or whatever, said pickleball was $4,000. I don't think it's going to be $4,000 when the nets were $249 or something each. So it seems very high to me that we're going from 6,100 to 20,000. And, since the committee has been somewhat in fluctuation, I guess I want to check. I want to make sure that in my mind that it's legitimate. It may be legitimate in everyone else's mind, but I want to check that out. So 2018, and is there a plan? I guess is my question. Is there a written plan to say, here's the new programs, here's the cost of each of the new programs, here's the old programs, and what we're doing, and are we going to carry them on or not? Or do we just throw 20 grand? And they do some great work, I'm not trying to take away from that. So.
There is a plan, I have that. So I'll get it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So any other items there? We're getting now into things like after school program and thrift shop, beautification, library. The seniors' Christmas expenses are still there, and I'm assuming that that's because there is a budget to supply some decorations, and things like poinsettias and so on that are given away at the at the December, it's really a Diners Club event now. It's not our event, but it's, we still do the decoration, and the kids from the school still come and sing at that one particular meeting and that kind of thing. So that's what the $500 is there for.
I can speak to
Yeah.
that. I typically go to the seniors' Christmas dinner and send greetings from council. And yes, for the past 2 years, the municipality has donated $500, and they're either for centerpieces or something related to the meal itself, and they've been much appreciative of that. So I put it in the budget again, not knowing council's desire, but it is a very nice event that the seniors appreciate.
Yes.
The beautification has $0 affixed to it, and I believe that's because it's rolled in with facilities to bring flowers out and do the pots, and it's all done through a different stream than we had beautification as a line, and there was money assigned to it there a few years back.
Yeah, I can give you a history on that. I was in charge of the beautification committee as a council rep way back, and Morley Moore did all the work here on the flower bed. And so I didn't have much to do, but finally when Morley moved and whatever, staff started doing the flower bed and whatever out here. So it has, I think it's been rolled into the facilities and landfill and that kind of stuff. I think the students do most of the work, don't they, on the flower bed, or am I wrong?
2 years, Your Worship, I didn't know that it was a volunteer effort to look after that, so we just had staff do it.
Well, don't,
Nobody told us.
no, Morley's passed away now, so
Yeah,
he was the
yeah.
only one who did anything, so no, there's no volunteers doing the flower bed.
So, we do purchase flowers every year though, right, somewhere?
That's what I'm counting on, there's no budget.
I'm wondering if there should be a beautification item in the facilities budget somewhere, just to allow for, or is there already?
It's there at
There's
$1,000.
something in it. It's always been $1,000.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
$1,000.
all right, so we could remove this as a separate item from the chart of accounts then, and if we got the other one, I'm sorry, there's so many items there, I missed it, but there's a few instances of that where the same thing is in different places. So, library. Anything unusual about that? What are the, somebody could perhaps enlighten me, what are the library expenses that the 75, 80 grand of expenses, what are those particulars? What kind of things are they?
It's what the library asks for our funding. It's to do with building maintenance.
Sorry, what was it?
It's to do with building maintenance and issues with grass cutting, that sort of thing, general maintenance. So we fund them an amount of money every year. And that's what that amount is from their budget, the library's budget.
Okay, but do they simply ask us for some money and we give it to them and they spend it, or do the expenses go through our books?
So we send them the money.
Okay, so it's really a library board budget item
Yes.
that's, okay. I just wasn't sure what. Anything else? Okay, we're at planning and development, I guess. Our planning and development expense is down a lot, right? what would be the explanation for that?
There is still an allocation to be made. The planning assistant salary, there's a proration between how much time is spent on planning. And so there's still, again, another year-end adjustment, so there will be an amount reduced from the municipal administration line, and it will increase the planning line, so there's a reallocation of time.
If I may.
Anywhere close.
In the past, I believe, prior to this year, you allocated about 40% of the planning assistant. Would that be correct, Pat?
I think it's more like
50%. So one of the pieces of information we've been working on this past year is how much time does the planning assistant actually spend on planning-related activities? And we've established, well, for last year, it was somewhere between 10 and 20% of her time that was specific to planning, and the rest was administrative work within the office. So we're going to reduce that. I believe we agreed to reduce it to 20%. Is that correct, Pat, for budgeting purposes?
I haven't seen any numbers yet. I think that was a guess at this point in time.
Okay. But certainly we won't be budgeting 50%. It'll be more like 20%. So I'll have to revisit this line.
So the budget line will change for 2020, right?
I have a question for Pat, if I may. So if we budget for the planning assistant in administration, and then we also budget in here, we haven't double budgeted, is that correct? Because you're going to reallocate.
Yes. So we reallocated at the end of the year.
You know,
But why would we budget it in one place and then move it if it's, I don't get that exactly.
So if I may, so we budget for the planning assistant in administration salaries generally. Do you budget for the planning assistant in admin less the 50% that's budgeted here? In other words, is it partially budgeted here and then partially budgeted in admin salaries?
No, it should all be in admin, and then it's reallocated at the end of the year, based on time spent.
So, but you don't,
Perhaps this with me. Perhaps.
yeah,
we can-
I think,
yeah, why don't
okay,
we-
I
why don't
I can see.
we- Yeah, we'll talk offline.
Yeah, all right.
and,
I think it's,
Well, this would also be John Jackson's fees and things like that in there, right? So it's, yeah.
yeah, well, I'm kind of wondering, like, there's an item called planning and development, which I was interpreting to be salaries, but then I'm looking and saying, okay, where is, then there's an item, planning capital official plan zoning, and it has never had any money, it wasn't in the budget before, but now it's got money attached to it. Why are we treating that separately from other planning? And I guess where are the fees that we pay to John Jackson for planning?
John Jackson, he's in the planning and development line. There is an official plan that's done, is it every 3 years? Official planning and zoning bylaw. I believe it's done every 2 or 3
Okay, so we decided to separate that, did we?
So I
Yeah, I know.
separated it because I believe 2020 it comes up again, but in the past it was all in that one line.
Okay. How about community economic and development? Anyway. There's a community development committee which doesn't exist, but it's had $9,000. Somehow or other it managed to spend $33.76 this year. And there's a suggestion that it should spend $3,000 next year. If it doesn't exist, how does that happen?
I think Pat was about to say, but that's that's where the Todd signs get charged to. And perhaps it's time to simply reword that, but that's traditionally where they get charged to, and that's,
Yeah, we could reword.
That committee started that and it came out of their budget.
Like, we have a walking trails maintenance, we should, again, I would just change the name to walking trail signs or something, right? So that,
Well, maintenance is,
no, I know maintenance is separate. I'm saying change the community development committee to walking trail signs or something so that people realize that it is. That's all.
And we did reduce the amount of signs on Highway 11 and 400, and that's why it's brought down from 9,000 to 3,000.
that's correct.
Yeah, no, that, now that I understand it's the signs, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, that was, and I see land use permit, additional capital additional projects, and then there's land use permit, which I'm guessing had to do with, was that Gooseneck or?
I think so, yes, yes.
But now it's gone up to 7,500, which is, where did that come from?
I don't know, do you have any notes on that, Pat, why that's 7,500?
Is that not the CNO rate?
Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah, that's what I told Pat to put in there. So what I was talking to council last night about is CNO and the contributions that we may need to make. I've since found out today that it's probably significantly less than that, and I'll know more next Monday. So this will be the contribution to economic development. Westbury Sound Act, yeah, thank you, Pat. Again, maybe it's time to rename
Yeah,
this or
yeah.
create a new account so there's no misunderstanding.
Did we not have a contributions to that, to regional economic planning previously, though?
I don't believe there was a contribution last year, but for the
think
previous 3
2018
years there was.
Okay, all right, because I guess I would have expected to have seen it before, but anyway.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
Something that used to show up under CEDC was the promotional materials that went out. There were several brochures. We advertised Whitestone through a number of papers. I guess none of that is happening now. I don't see it reflected in the budget anyway. Beth, you'd recall that. You were
yeah, we
Share
used to
that.
advertise in the Side Roads magazine. We had an ad just about Whitestone and all the different things that, and now that you mention that, that triggers the donation we make to the high school for,
that was through CEDC also.
that was through CDC as well. The graduation, I think it's $500, the Louise Woods
Yeah.
Award.
yeah, where is that in here?
Yeah, that just, now that Councilman Keane said that, that triggered that other thought. That was from that committee as well.
The Louise Woods Scholarship at the Perry Sound High School, did you?
Wasn't that part of the shop donation?
No,
No,
that's when we did the municipality.
no, that's the municipality funding that.
Is that part of the municipal donation policy?
No, it came out of CDC. But it could come out of the donation policy, I guess, but it was
Sure.
never a donation.
Is that the Mrs. Woods Award?
Yeah.
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 I'm just wondering where it is in the budget. It's coming, what it's getting charged to. It's getting charged somewhere because we do it every
Give it
year.
out every year, have for years.
Paula was the.
Anyway, you can look it up. Don't, we don't need to worry about it now, but yeah, it was,
Excuse me, but
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we could maybe have Paula revisit some of that file and just maybe refresh whether we should be continuing to advertise that the trails were in there. Put out quite a little welcome to Whitestone scenario through that committee. I know it's all by the wayside now, but maybe there's something council should be still attending to through some means.
we did the videos too, right?
Did all the business.
Yeah.
Did a lot of money on
There was a
videos.
lot invested
But-
at one time.
You know, my thought is that maybe we should, you know, we've got a communication consultant, like who's looking at all this stuff. Maybe we should look at the old file and put the information to that person.
To her,
How
yeah,
do we
she
best-
should know about
And she
this if
should
she
also
doesn't.
know about the videos, right? Because there was a lot of money
There's
spent
some
on
great videos. Yeah.
Did she see the videos, or?
No, honestly, I wasn't aware of them. I assumed that they would go on our new website.
They were on the old
They're on the
website.
website.
Oh, they're
on the
still there?
website.
Oh,
Where you
okay.
just can't find them.
Oh, okay. But what I will
Yeah.
share the CEDC file with Molly, and she will be coming to council on March 16th.
Councillor Lamb?
Yeah, now that I think we've come to the end of this.
We have.
Yeah, there you go. I find even after all these years, just so many accounts. And is there not a way that this year we can simplify all this and, you know, have less accounts and have them named right? And because you have wages over here and wages there. There needs to be an explanation, I think, to council, which I think would make this a little easier. As I say, I've been at it for 12 or 13 years now. Councillor Woods must be going crazy looking at all this stuff for the first time. And so I just kind of request that at least staff look at that simplifying. We've just got way too many accounts. Like I'm sure in the entire country there aren't enough accounts as we have, so.
May I ask,
If-
had a quick question on that? Sure.
Yeah, I was just going to comment that if you saw my original, the pages that were circulated originally before the meeting, which were smaller print than the ones that have in front of us today, I've got the whole thing marked up everywhere with these, what is this? And what is this account really for, and why is it separate? And never mind the question of why are the amounts over and under what was budgeted and that kind of thing. But I did say to our CIO when after I'd finished looking at it, I think it's time for us to do a rationalization of the chart of accounts a bit and get it down to something that is a little more manageable and a little more and so it's easy for people to see when they look at an account what it is. One of the problems that I've experienced in the past is when you have in other organizations, and when you have very complicated sets of charts of accounts, what happens is that it's very difficult to figure out what stuff should be charged to, so it gets charged to the wrong account, you know, and then you don't get the benefit of all this granularity that you've got in the thing anyway. So it's I actually plan to sit down with our treasurer and go through some of my notes on here, which I didn't want to take time for today, or we'd be here till after supper. But hopefully we can come up with something a little better for next year. And I understand what the problem. I understand why people don't want to change the start of accounts, because it makes it difficult to do year-over-year comparisons, because now you've taken away an account that was there last year, but this is too this is a bit too complicated in some areas where we can, I think we can simplify it, and that'll make our job easier next year when we go to do this, what we were doing today. So you wanted to make a comment first.
It was more what you were talking, I would actually a question for our treasurer. We can remove line items, but am I assuming that you wouldn't want to reassign those account numbers to another account, just so that you have the continuity of information?
You lose the visitor.
Right.
But, I mean, this is basically a GL dump, so I can roll things up.
Okay. So Chief Whitman are you waving your hand?
I'll wait my turn, but.
No, this is your turn. I just wasn't sure if you were wanting to say
I'm
something.
not sure if this is the place to ask, but I was wondering if council could approve my repeater tonight, because it is coming out of my budget, or out of my every reserve so I can get it ordered, because it's gonna take some time to get that ordered in. To replace it, I'll be, set up to do that. Or not.
We don't have any, like, we don't have any motions in front of it, like, we're in committee of the whole, of course, but we don't have any budget. We weren't planning to make any budget decisions, we were just planning to discuss them. I don't know what. I guess my suggestion is that we should leave it till the next, sorry, but I think since we're not, there isn't some urgency that you can't.
No,
That-
no, it's just, it's gonna take some time. The sooner I get it started, the sooner we'll get it in place. That's all. But no, it can wait till the next time.
Don't you want to wait till the warmer weather to climb up to the top of that tower?
Well, they're not climbing on the top of the tower, the repeater's on the bottom. If you climb to the top, we should have hired them. Going the wrong way.
That's confirming that.
Okay. Back to, well, first of all, we need to reconvene to a regular meeting because we're in committee of the whole.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. I will write down that you made the motion if I can find it where I put my pen. Here we are. Councillor Lamb moves. A seconded by Councillor Woods. That council hereby reconvenes into a regular council meeting at 4:20 p.m. All in favor, please indicate. Thank you. So, I have a motion that council hereby receives staff report FIN 2020-03, which is the thing that we were just discussing. So now we're going to receive it, but just for information. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor McEwen, seconded by Councillor Gorham Matthews. All in favor? Thank you.
Sorry, the treasurer was trying to ask a question.
2004, 03. I think you said 03.
That's what's on the page in front of me. Is it 20?
Oh, I see what you're trying to say.
Yes, it's 2020-04. Thank you very much. We'll just correct that. 04. We'll get it right. Now the confirming bylaw. Councillor Lamb, right?
I'll confirm.
Seconder. Seconder by Councillor McEwen. All in favor? And we don't really need a confirming bylaw. But anyway,
Because we didn't, I thought we might make some
we
decisions.
didn't make any decisions, so we don't need, but we confirmed doing nothing, I guess. Be it resolved that this meeting be adjourned at 4:23 p.m. All those in favor, oh, I need a mover. Mover, Councillor Woods moves.
Seconder.
You seconding, Councillor Lamb? That's carried. Thank you very much, everybody.